I'd say the only thing that could be is goodwill, like Kant said. So
nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talk about goodwill.
Goodwill, man.
So I actually didn't have anything in my paper about goodwill, but goodwill. So goodwill, the thing about it is, nothing really is good except for almost like the inclination of the goodwill. So nothing is good except the goodwill itself. So nothing is absolutely good except the goodwill. So like you can't say every puppy is an angel. Because every puppy, there's some bad apples in there.
There's
Yeah.
okay.
Some bad apples in there.
Some bad apples in the puppies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, we did a good job on bringing all these things together and branching it out as well on different concepts and of police reform, which we talked about, which is really good. But
Are those all the questions? Yeah.
Let's see.
One thing I did want to point out, I wrote down, that's the very first thing I wrote down, was cops in the community. So there has to be a sense of trust. And right now, that trust is definitely broken. That's why totalitarian police forces just don't work, because there's no trust. It's literally like state mandates, government mandates, or regime mandates with
In reference to the National Guard again? Is that
No. I'm just talking about
just in
in
general?
a totalitarian nation, the police force will never work because there is no trust between the community and the police force.
See, but we don't have a totalitarian system here, and we also
Correct.
don't trust the
Yeah.
police force. So what is it?
What's the designating factor of why we don't have the trust right now with the police?
Yeah, would it be the same as one within?
Man, it could be so many different things. Really, if you were to ask me, I'd say that instead of protecting and serving, they're citing and harassing. So, I've seen a lot of situations where a cop will walk up to a random person or a person doing nothing wrong and ask them what they're doing, and they'll say what they're doing, and they're doing nothing wrong, but then the cop will ask for an ID. Now, I don't know legally if you have to give them the ID, but in most of these videos they don't, and I'm pretty sure that you don't have to, as long as you're not committing a crime.
Yeah.
So, that to me is just the cop is inciting in that situation. And my kind of political leaning, I'd say, is libertarian, so it's all about kind of being left alone as long as you're not harming somebody else. So that's my perspective of it. If they're not doing anything wrong, leave them alone.
I think it goes beyond inciting to taking advantage of their position, because as you said, in the police academy they have to take tests over I'm guessing knowledge of law, and most people don't know that they don't have to show their ID. That if you're a passenger, you definitely don't have to show your ID. But if a cop asks you, there is a level of intimidation that you have to comply.
No,
and
it's not if you're breaking. I think if you're breaking the law, you do have to.
Yeah,
I think.
But let's say you get pulled over and the cop asks you for your ID. You'll do it anyways. But that's the thing. Even if you know you don't have to, you still feel obliged to do it. So there is a power imbalance between the cops and a civilian that it can be taken advantage of and is taken advantage of many times. I don't want to say often sometimes, because that's just that's a gross generalization to very biased from my part, but I think that it can be taken advantage of, and there have been circumstances that turn fatal where it has been, and it's not just the ID, it's
Do you mean when you're pulled over too, you don't have to give it to them?
Yeah, you don't
Do
have
you
to
really?
give them.
I didn't know that.
Well, no, okay, if you're the passenger, you don't have to show an ID.
But
And
if you're behind the wheel, you have to
If you're the driver, you can actually show your ID without having to roll the window down.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Through the window.
You have to show that you have one.
But even then,
Proof of verification of you're that person.
Yeah, the license and registration. You do have to do that part, but you can just show it through the window. However, when you do that, the cop sees it as an...
They take offense to it when they don't have to. I know
Exactly.
what you mean. They're inciting.
Mhm.
They're making the situation worse by getting pissed off at them.
And so, since the beginning, regardless of race, you're at a disadvantage because you have these rights, but even if you were to, like, use them, they would be taken offensively.
Yeah, I totally understand.
So-
I agree with
What
you.
do
Yeah,
we do in
that's
these
to me. That's
circumstances?
just harassment on the cops' part. You know.
Yeah.
And so, if we want them to be more virtuous, which they practiced in police academy, you know, like, I think patience, I think, like, a balance of anger, like, the golden mean would be patience towards the individual, towards the circumstances. Like, here, I remember going to a talk with a DA for political science, and he told us that you could do the window thing, and he said, because in Amarillo, and the cops will take offense, but in Amarillo, there have been circumstances where people pretend to be cops and then rape women in their cars, you know. But if you were to do that to a regular, how are you supposed to tell the difference? And so I think the civilian at any time runs a higher risk than the police officer for something bad happening to them based on everything that they do from their initial interaction, you know.
Yeah.
Like, when it comes to African Americans, it's like from the smallest movements. When you're a person, if you're acting suspiciously, the police can use that as an excuse to, like, search your car or, like, ask you to take a breathalyzer, you know, even if you don't have to, like, if you're not drunk. And so I personally think that the lack of virtue comes from the police force in general, to where it's been allowed for them to abuse these, or, like, you know, harass, which is, like, yeah, taking advantage of their position at any defense, but, like, they require patience from people, but I think that patience isn't really practiced.
Yeah, I mean, patient comes to everyone differently, you know. As I'm really impatient, so as for me, it's you know different for Harley and Sharon. So I think it's something that it's good to work on as well as a human being. But onto that, I think we really got into the normative ethics and the descriptive ethics on both sides. Which we talked about what the moral character of a cop, the situation, it states what action is right, depending on the situation is beneficial for the majority. So I think we are good on that and wrapping it up. And yeah, guys,
What was that? All the questions?
I think we're good on the questions.
So did we answer our initial question? Could police reform be considered a form of reparation to society? I think yes.
As long as we're not arguing reparations, yes. I think that would be a very great use of reparations.
Yeah.
What did you
We're not here to argue about reparations or whether...
Oh.
Yeah. But yes, I do think that police... I think it'd be the perfect one.
You think so? I think we don't agree in the form of, like, I think defunding the police is... But
yeah, they tried that in Minneapolis and
that's
it
one.
failed. It failed.
That,
It failed.
that's one
That's
place, you know?
It's kind of like communism.
Oh,
Communism is
that's
the
not...
only... Okay,
Okay.
talking about absolutes now. Communism is the only absolute that's not working.
Alright.
I'm just kidding.
We're not going to talk about communism.
Yeah, I guess we'll wrap up there, right? And not talk about communism. So, guys, thanks for this watching this podcast.
100%.
So, farewells from Josh.
Sure.
Harley,
Harley. Take care, guys.
join our cult.